Gang, we've got to start in the Middle East. People are saying World War III is upon us. I think that's a bit of hyperbole, James.
I think it's a lot of hyperbole, but we have seen in the last 48, 72 hours, of course, this real conflict kick off now between Iran and Israel. Just the background to this, of course, is that Israel says, and in fact, actually, the International Atomic Energy Agency said the same thing, too, that Iran was really close to breaking out on its atomic energy ambitions. Israel struck first. They struck hard. They decapitated the Iranian Revolutionary Guard Corps, which is massive. Now, Iran has been trying to hit back. They've in the last few hours now, they've attempted to send more missiles in towards Israel. They've caused some damage. They've also targeted, I'm told, a plant in Haifa that refines jet fuel for Israel. Now, if they've done that, then this means that they're trying to take this conflict to a whole new level. I think the push now on Israel is simply they want to create regime change in Iran. They want to get to the point now where the Mullahs are forced to flee the country to Russia or someplace else or surrender, because they see Iran now as an existential threat. And the other thing, too, here, it's fascinating, the diplomacy between Donald Trump, Benjamin Netanyahu, and this whole conflict, because, of course, they kind of faked out the Iranians who thought, oh, Israel's not going to attack. Donald Trump doesn't want them to attack. Well, they did, and here we are.
It is going to be a fascinating situation, Caroline. Is this a project to essentially end Iran's nuclear ambitions, or is the goal really greater than that? Is this about regime change in Iran?
I think it's both. I mean, clearly it's about stopping the immediate threat of a nuclear attack, because, as Benjamin Netanyahu has pointed out, Iran has enriched enough uranium for 9 atomic bombs, and it was just a couple of steps away, possibly months away, from being able to have nuclear weapons. That is a threat not just to Israel, which is obviously on the front line here, but the rest of the world. And obviously in that will be a regime change, which we should point out is being celebrated by the people of Iran, who do not, on the whole, like their leaders. This is seen, this is being celebrated there. People are happy. They're having parties and dancing.
But there's a real danger here, Caroline, because if the Israelis overplay their hand, you could say, and we see those civilian casualties increase, I think you'll see the Iranian people, even the ones who are very anti-regime, change their point of view. They don't want to see their own people slaughtered. So it is a really fine balancing act for Israel, but it's also a fine balancing act for Donald Trump. He's always been about strength, peace through strength. And he's also knows that his voters don't want to have another big conflict that America's at the heart of. So how does he balance the America First approach with getting rid of Iran's nuclear ambitions and perhaps the regime, because it is a danger to the US, not just to Israel?
Yeah, well, it's really interesting. A few hours ago, a quote dropped in the Atlantic magazine where President Donald Trump, and by the way, isn't it great now to have a president who can just pick up the phone and talk to journalists and talk to reporters and tell them what's going on and what he's thinking? He told the Atlantic, he said, basically, he respects everybody who wants to see peace, but he said also, peace does not exist. You can't have peace if Iran has an atomic bomb. And I think that's exactly right. You will note, by the way, also, and everything you say, Reed, is correct, but also you would note that there's been absolutely no opposition to Israel's actions across the wider Sunni Middle East, right? So, I mean,
there is plenty, though, around the world. You've got France, you've got
France is not fully Sunni yet, okay? So let's just keep that in mind. But traditionally you would have said, oh, the Arab Street would have been furious about Israel. There would have been death to Israel for attacking the Muslim world. No, they have the backs of Israel, the Saudis, everybody else. They're very close to normalization. Nobody in the area wants to see a nuclear Iran. It is not just the Israelis. So that's point one. Point number two here. Donald Trump, as you say, especially the Gen Z MAGA contingent, they really do not want to see any foreign wars. And I think he gets this. He wants to end this sooner rather than later. But, on the third thing, this whole regime change issue. Well, remember, this goes back to the Obama administration. And you remember when there were all of the protests and massive, civil unrest in Iran. And Obama, for all of his talk about, loving democracy and loving the people and all of this sort of thing, he basically said to the Iranians, go for your life, because, of course, Ben Rhodes had helped him architect that original nuclear plan, which is what we're now seeing the end game of playing out. So a lot of this goes back to Barack Obama and his fecklessness in running the Middle East. As to what comes next, well, look, I don't know about you. Personally, I'd love to see the Shah come back. But, let's also remember that the reason why we have this regime here is that after the Shah was deposed in 1979, all these Western liberals thought, oh, it's going to be wonderful. We'll have this new liberal regime. And then the Mullahs came in and took over after the liberal regime was there for about 35 seconds.